Are you ready for some underwear? Hello people of the internet, I'm back with the first video of my new series, Briar Rose Updated. Are you ready for some underwear? No, not this one. Some 1950s underwear. This series is all about updating this outfit from the Disney film Sleeping Beauty, and in this video I'm going to create a 1950s petticoat. If you would like to know more about my ideas for the entire outfit, I have a dedicated video for that, and I encourage you to go and watch that because there are things that I explain there that I won't be explaining in this video. So it might be a good idea to check that out first before you get into this. I will link that video up here and down below in the description box in case you're interested in that. As I said, this video is all about a 1950s petticoat which I'm going to make with the help of a pattern. This one, in this case, is from Simplicity, and I'm going to attempt this design here with the scalloped trim, which kind of reflects what you can see in the image. Unfortunately, as in my previous sewing video, I don't have all of my materials yet. I tried, I went shopping and I tried to find the trim, but I couldn't find the trim. It's a very wide trim, it's very difficult to source, so I had to order it online and it's going to take a couple of weeks to arrive. My plan is to get started with this project and just finish it whenever the trim arrives. Luckily, adding the trim is the very last step. Finding Broderie Anglaise trim 6 inches wide is difficult, really, every time. Materials. Even though the petticoat in this costume is white and I wanted to keep it that way, I couldn't throw away the opportunity of making 2 petticoats. Therefore, I have 2 fabrics. They're both the same fabric in just different color. It's a cotton poplin. As for thread, same as usual, silk thread from Gutermann in black and white. Closures. Hooks on eyes or hooks and bars. I'm not entirely sure yet. I've got hooks on eyes here. And I've got hooks and bars here. Delicious. I've got the trim. First of all, the ad for the white one fooled me because it said it was 15 centimeters wide and it's not. It is 12, but the one the pattern suggests was supposed to be double-edged and you had to overlap a bit. So I'm hoping I can still make it work, and if not, the petticoat is going to be a couple of centimeters short. What can you do? It's not that much, it's fine. It's fine. This is the white one. It's rather pretty. And now for the black one, this one is actually 19 centimeters, so the ad for this one was fine. And in this case, because it's too wide, I might have to shorten the lower tier so that it isn't too long, because that, unlike being too short, might be a problem because I don't want it peeking under my skirts too much, just enough. This is the black one. It is quite pretty, I rather like it. So that, my friends, finally were the materials. Yes, I'm procrastinating. I don't particularly enjoy cutting the pattern pieces from the fabric. I find it very stressful. So here I am, lying on them. Oops. Okay. have my instructions here. I'm going to try to go step by step, unless I think the instructions make no sense, in which case I'm going to do whatever I think is best. The first step is telling me to add 2 gathering threads between the notches in the 2 yoke pieces, so that the pieces can be eased later into the right size waistband. I think that's the purpose of it. I'm not sure, but I think so. I have some contrasting thread here that I'm going to be using because it was already in the sewing machine, so why change if it's already there? The next step is to sew the yoke pieces together on one of the sides. I've decided to sew most pieces in this project using French seams, which is not in the pattern, but whatever. The pieces are first sewn with wrong sides together and 1/4 inch of seam allowance. This seam is pressed open and trimmed to half the length. Then the pieces are turned and pinned with right sides together. They are sewn again with 3/8 inch of seam allowance. The finished seam is pressed to one side. Yes, I got dressed. I have somewhere to be today. So. Also, I got this dress today and I love it and I had to wear it. The shirt you might recognize if you've been following me because I made it. I feel it works with this. I mean, yeah, right? Yeah. The next step, which is step 3, is the first tier of the petticoat. There's 2. And we have to join them to make a big loop. As before, I'm going to try to use French seams every time I can. In this case, I can only do one side with French seams and not the other, because in the other one there has to be a gap at the very top left open. So yeah, I'm going to have to finish that seam by hand, but it is what it is. I'm sewing one side with a French seam and the other with a regular seam and right sides together. Why I thought that was going to work is beyond me. I'm sewing 2 gathering lines across the top of the loop, one at 3/8 inch from the edge and the other at 5/8 inch. Then the yoke and the first tier are pinned right sides together, matching the centers and side seams. I regret not sewing this with a French seam. It ended up being a lot of extra work. The loose threads are pulled to form the gathers until the pieces have the same length. The gathers are evened out and pinned. A pair of eyes checked later and I'm back in launch mode. I finished pinning the gathers to the yoke section and the instructions are telling me to baste the seam before sewing it, but I'm feeling rebellious, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and sew it straight away. It's pretty secure with the pins. No, I'm just going to go and sew it. I'm going to sew it after I eat my cookie. So yes, I messed up and sewed through part of the yoke. Here we go again. Next, I'm finishing this seam by hand. I'm cutting one side of the seam allowance to half the length, then wrapping the long side over the short one and basting them, and finally sewing them flat to the garment to hide the raw edges. The opening left on one side of the petticoat is also finished in the same way. Waistband time! I'm attaching the interfacing to the waistband and pressing inwards 5/8 inch from the unnotched side. The waistband is attached to the petticoat right sides together, matching notches, seams and edges to the appropriate marks. Then it's sewn with 5/8 of an inch of seam allowance. The seam allowance is trimmed to half the length, leaving the edges for now. The edges of the waistband are folded right sides together and sewn as indicated. The seam allowance and corners are trimmed, and then the waistband is turned to the right side. The waistband is then folded and placed to just hide the seam on the inside of the petticoat and pinned on the outside. It's sewn from the outside very close to where the original seam was, making sure to also catch the inside edge. I attached the closures off camera because I hate closures. I finally went with a hook and bar.
Hello again. So far so good. It seems to be working. It fits my waist, which is great because, as we know, this has been an issue before. This time I got it right, which I'm really pleased about. This is open because this is underwear, so we don't care about that. Yeah, the seams hit in the right place. It seems to fit rather nicely.
Hello friends! Maybe you're expecting an update, but unfortunately I haven't got one because I haven't been able to touch my sewing throughout the week because I've been busy, because I've been having issues at work. So my week has been unpleasant. I'm hoping to finish the white petticoat this weekend and at least start the black petticoat, but we'll see because I also want to do a lot of video editing, which I should have done during the week, but I didn't have time to because work was messy. Yeah. And I'm going to go and take some pictures for the transitions of the video now.
Okay, so I've figured the trim situation. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be 3 centimeters short. I think it's unavoidable. Obviously the 3 centimeters I'm missing from the trim. So I'm just going to roll with it and it's going to be fine, I think. So the next step is to form the lower tier before the trim. I've got 4 of these pieces and I need to attach them all. I'm going to do that. Really, you did have to do that right now. Okay, let me see if I can tell the freezer to stop being annoying. I'm going to form it the same way as the first tier using French seams. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and I'll be back when I'm done. Okay, I'm back. I've got French seams. Hopefully you can see them. Very nice and finished. And I've also taken the time to do the basting threads since the piece was currently flat in one very long strip. So now the next step, and here I'm completely ignoring the pattern now, is to add the trim. I think it's much easier to add and cut the trim when the piece you're attaching it to is flat. I'm going to pin it all around, and then I'm also going to attach it with French seam, so I'm going to show you that process now. I'm really trying to finish this today.
First, I'm pinning the trim to the lower tier, wrong sides facing each other. Once it's pinned, I'm cutting the trim to the right length. I'm sewing the 2 layers together with 1/4 inch of seam allowance. Here, I'm trimming the seam allowance to half the length. The 2 layers are pinned with right sides facing each other and hiding the raw edge. Finally, they are sewn again with 3/8 inch of seam allowance. To turn this long strip of fabric into a loop, I'm going to sew the 2 edges with a French seam. Here you can see the beginning of that. The final step is to attach the lower tier to the upper tier. I'm first pinning the seam I just sewed to one of the side seams, and then pinning other seams and centers of pieces to the appropriate places. Next, the basting threads are pulled together until the 2 pieces have the same length. The gathers are arranged evenly and pinned. Now that the petticoat is all gathered up and pinned, it's time to attempt to sew it with a French seam. Am I at all confident that that is going to work? Certainly not, but I am still going to try. Hello again, friends of the internet. So I've had to pause the petticoat video for a second because I want to use the 1950s skirt I made last year for the reveal of this project. And as you can see in this video here, I kind of messed it up a little bit, and the quick fix that I did at the time is not holding up, so I've decided to actually fix it. Now, because this video is pretty long already, I'm not going to include that footage here, but I will move it to my next video, because since that one is going to be another 1950s skirt, well, it just makes sense. However, the reveal of that fix will be in this video. In any case, all that's left to do anyway is repeat everything I did for petticoat number 1 with petticoat number 2, and since there is not going to be anything different, I figured we could make it fun and try to do a speed run. I'm not sure if this is going to be feasible. As usual, underestimated the amount of work that a project takes. What's new on this channel? Nothing's new. I literally make this mistake every single time. I don't learn. But hey, I'm going to attempt to make it in one day. And okay, technically, I'm going to attempt to do everything in one day except cutting the fabric, because it takes forever. Whoo! Fun times! Let's go and do a lot of sewing very, very fast. So, it's 10:58, I know, it's late, but I haven't been able to get started until now, so I guess I'm going to go even faster. This is my plan. I want to change threads as little as possible, so I'm going to try to do all the basting all in one go. That means that the first step is to attach both tiers except for one seam, so that they're a long strip of fabric, and that's it really. I'm starting with that, so let's go. I forgot that this took hours. I have now gathering threads in every single place. There need to be gathering threads. Oh, come on. It is looking increasingly unlikely that I'm going to finish this today. I'm going to continue for a little bit, then have a little break for lunch and go back. I think I had blocked the memory of how long it took to deal with the trim and the low tier and all that jazz. I'm not done yet. I just attached the trim, but it's still in one big long strip of fabric. I need to make it into a loop next. But the reason why I am giving you an update is because I am going to sew that seam at the same time as I start sewing some of the seams for the rest of the project. I just dropped the waistband. Wait a second. Because I'm trying to reduce to a minimum the trips to the ironing board. Back to work.
Alright, so it's past 10 now, which confirms, which I suspected from the very beginning. It was not possible to do this in one day. This is what I've done. I finished attaching the first tier. To be honest, even if I had started really early, I would probably have to give up at some point during the day because of back pain. It is bad. I'm going to tidy up the kitchen from all the sewing mess that I've made, and I'm going to get ready for bed because I'm exhausted, as you can probably tell. If I wear the same t-shirt, does it still look like it's the same day? It was not possible to make it in one day, and it doesn't look like it's going to be possible to make it in 2 straight days. I wish I could tell you I could finish this today with what remains of Friday. It's 5 p.m. at the moment, and if I had the whole remaining Friday, maybe I could. But that's not the case. So I'm going to do what I can here and finish as soon as possible. Definitely finishing this weekend, I think. I'll make it happen. Okay, so I cheated and did the waistband on Friday. I wasn't sure if I was going to have all of Sunday to work on this. In any case, the only step left is to attach the lower tier to the rest of the petticoat. So that means a lot of gathering. Yay! Waiting for the washing machine to stop so that I can talk. There we go.
Y encima en esta prenda hay como 700 millones de metros de frunces.
Hello. I'm done. Okay, I'm going to try again to film an outro outside. I have to talk rather loud for it to work, so everyone is going to think that I'm completely nuts. But what's new? I'm dressed like a pirate filming in the cemetery. Everybody already thinks I'm nuts. For a change, actually not. This project took so much longer than I thought. When I started, I was like, yeah, petticoat, easy project, should be done in like a weekend. 2 months later, here we are. At least I'm really pleased with the result. I love both of them. I wanted to let you know one thing. I mentioned it in my previous video, but barely anybody watched that, so I'm going to say it again. And I have a shorts channel and a TikTok, which are linked down below, where I post short form content. I try to do regular updates, usually weekly updates of what I'm doing when I'm actually sewing. So if you're interested in that or want to know at what point I am in a project, you can go and check that out. People are watching me and I'm feeling really observed and I'm so embarrassed. It's fine. It's fine. If you enjoyed this video, do leave a like and a comment below. I love reading comments. And if you would like to join me with more shenanigans in the future, sewing or otherwise, don't hesitate to subscribe in the link button thing below the video. I hope to see you again very, very soon. Bye!